Look Bout Yourself with Marcia and Musufing.
Greetings everybody and welcome back to a second in our relationships edition of Look Bout Yourself. So last time
we were just talking about the foundations of relationships, how it has been, what the foundations that formed that for us.
Yes. And this time
we want to talk about our relationship. So what that experience, how the foundations kind of
influenced and affected and shaped the types of relationships
absolutely
we've gone on to have.
Absolutely.
So what about for you?
Well,
relationship,
my very first relationship, I'm not even sure if you could call it that,
and we're talking about intimate. For us, man-woman relationships.
Yeah.
That's our experience and our...
Yeah. So I'm not even sure if we could call it that. Necessarily. More of a... It didn't last long, put it that way. And I became pregnant at 18. So it all... Yeah, it was quite the shock.
Yes.
And...
what did your dad say, parents?
My dad...
Your parents, what did they say?
My dad didn't speak to me for 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was really, and I was still living at home at the time.
So that was like heartbreaking. A question.
Yeah.
Were you given any informal education support advice around relationships before you started having them?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
My mom, I think, was quite forward thinking, for the time, and I know that my mum was the sort of person, still is, but you could ask her anything and she'd tell you. She never shied away from discussing anything, but I just didn't take that to her. I don't think anybody knew that I was in a relationship.
Did you bring him home?
No.
That's interesting. So you came from mum, dad, wedding ring, family, which I remember I said I thought that was the perfection.
Yeah.
Because my family was so fragmented.
Yeah.
So you didn't bring him home. It was done.
Yeah, and I think that was partly because of my dad. My dad, he was very, very protective towards his girls. Yeah, and even though I was 17 when I first met, 18, I knew that I knew that I would get grief if we bring my...
Introduced.
Yeah, so yes. I just thought it's just easy to...
We are the it, man.
Yeah. So it was that kind of thing.
Well, Marcia, I also got pregnant at 18.
Oh, wow.
I was living at home.
Yeah.
My mum was in a long-term relationship with a horrible somebody, Misari. He's dead now. But when I think of him, he was not a nice person. Right. Very toxic human being. First time I got punched in my face was by this person.
Wow.
And I was about 13 or 14.
Wow.
And I mean, like him, a leak man, Anyway.
Wow.
So my mum was kind of in between, and we were, why is she with this person? So on top of having, the all sorts dads. He was an example of a male in the home because he was with my mum for quite a few years.
Right.
So I was running away from home because I didn't want to be at home. And a young man across the road, he's a lovely person. He really is. He's been up to this day, wonderful dad. He was running away. So we clashed.
Right.
We went out, we used to go to... And I didn't really know how to navigate. There's no rule book and there was no... I started my period. My mum gave me this big, hefty book. She said, take this and read this. When I was 11, Go read this. She gave me a book. And in her way, that was her way of, you know. So I was at Thomas Danby College doing nursery nursing.
No, please. No.
Don't say it.
No way. I did nursery nursing at Thomas Danby, and I was doing that when I got pregnant.
I didn't finish.
I didn't finish.
Oh, where did it blow? No, Marcia.
Yeah, Zar Street.
Zar Street, Holbeck.
No way. No way.
What's going on? You see how many things.
Wow.
It's only because I'm talking 90. Daniel was born in 1984.
Dean was born 81. So
otherwise, we would have been.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That is incredible.
Wow.
Another parallel.
Yeah.
Well, my mum didn't speak to me. My sister was nursing in Pontefract at the time. And I said, when I tell Mum, can you stay here, please?
Oh.
And I was sitting on me and my sister were sitting on one side of the table, Mum was sitting on the other. And I told her, she didn't speak to me for, wasn't 9 months, it was. Because I think for them, it's like, this is the very thing. You've shattered.
Yeah.
Something was shattered for them. This was not the dream.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we understand why they couldn't give us the tools, but they didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We just navigate. I feel I just navigated it from my gut or from some...
Yeah. Absolutely. Same thing. My dad didn't speak to me for 9 months and I lived at home.
Wow.
And that was
my mum said, shut the door, pass me the salt or whatever.
My mum, when she found out, she was the one that did everything, so in terms of, you know, communicating with my dad. So when she found out and I had to tell her, and she's like, all right, okay, we're going to have to tell your dad. And, you know, she sorted all of that out and, you know, she kind of was the piggy in the middle, as it were, and kind of smoothed it for me.
Yeah.
And protected me actually within that, you know, because my dad was like, oh my God, just like you said, that wasn't the dream.
No.
For their children, you know, so, and it was, yeah.
That's not what we came here for. We came here to write or to correct certain things.
Yes. Yeah.
All the way from Jamaica for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, my mum did protect me because she understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
even because young man lived opposite me, we kind of grew up together, and he went into shock, and I think because of the structure of family that I came from, it was kind of expected. Right. And it was almost like, well, that's the family you come from. So, but as for him, it's a shock for him.
Right.
I wasn't allowed to be in shock of being pregnant at 18, but he was.
Okay.
But my mum, she went round to the house. I remember we went to the house and she said, you mean if you say your son? And she really laid it on thick and heavy. But she protected me, and she, when I went into labour, she's the one that came to hospital. I had my daughter with my mum.
Same here.
Wow.
Yeah, my mum.
Yes.
I mean, Dad was there, but my mum was there when Dean was born.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's how I wanted it.
And not to go off track, did Dean soften your dad?
When we came home, because remember I'm still living at home, and where we lived, the kitchen, there was like a hatch. There's a glass panel, and you can see, you know, through into the living room. And so he still weren't speaking to me, and I came home, and I remember me and my mum were in the kitchen, and you know, the baby was in the, you know, the crib thing in the living room, and my mum suddenly went, watch here, you know, like this. So we looked, and we could see my dad. I don't know whether he realised that we could actually see him through the smoked glass, you know. And he'd got up and he was looking, you know, in the crib thing, and he was playing with the baby. We could see his, you know, him doing that. When I went into the living room, he was back in the chair with his paper, like nothing, like he hadn't done anything. And eventually, you know, he'd take him up out of the crib and I'd catch him, you know, with the baby in his hand. So it was like, oh well. And actually, Dean was the apple of his eye.
Oh.
Was the apple. He could do no wrong. I would get told off, you know, as Dean got older. You know, he'd be telling me, leave the boy alone, you know, if I'm, you know, if he's naughty. I mean, he could get away with anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really did soften my dad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So, in terms of relationships, as we've got older, I will very honestly say that I hope the chaos at some point would end, and that I would meet the Prince Charming that I'd be with for the rest of my life. It never goes so. 4 children, no regrets when it comes to my children, but all from those kinds of broken...
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish I could say it better. And at times I've felt really... I've been in tears because of the choices that I've made for my children.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been in tears, and I'm not even talking about years ago. You know, even the last few years, wishing that I had chosen better
differently,
fathers for my kids. But I think each time I just fell into a relationship. It wasn't really... Each was a hope, but similar to my mum. Similar, but not dissimilar to my mum.
And I see the thing is, what happens is that in some ways they teach us how to be in relationships, don't they? I mean, we follow the pattern. And okay, so my mum, you know, was married to my dad, and you know, my dad, like I said, you know, was kind of, for me at least, it felt like he wasn't emotionally there for me. So there was always this kind of striving to get his attention, you know, for him to show that, oh, well done, Marcia, you know. I didn't necessarily get all that. That's not to say that he didn't love me.
Yes, of course.
It was just how he showed that.
Yeah.
And so maybe I was looking for that in the relationships that I subsequently had. Unfortunately, I spent most of my adult life after leaving school in toxic relationships, you know, doing the same as you. You know, I look back over those times and I'm just thinking, I wish I'd made better choices. Yeah. You know, I feel there was the element of guilt and shame for my boys, you know, that I didn't do better in terms of who their fathers were. You know, and it's like, why did I make those choices? You know, and it's...
I think... remember when I said, up to not recently, it's more about what made me feel that this person was right for me. So it's not to say I'm putting everything on, you know, the partners that I chose, but it's more about what is it about me that felt that this person, because when you look back, sometimes it's like, wow, what does that say about me? Where was I? So taking responsibility for our choices and not saying, you know, because I continue to love, you know, our men. That's never going to stop. But
absolutely. And I think when we were those ages, that's not something that we actually thought about. We didn't analyze what was going on.
Did we take a stock and stop? I mean, I remember speaking to probably siblings. You and I remember used to have conversations about when we were in situations. Sometimes we would meet and we would, you know, oh, Marcy, guess what? I'm pregnant again. And the hope and the whatever evaporated. but you have this baby again. And there's been times when we've supported each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Through that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's not an easy one to kind of fully...
It's not. I mean, I think you said something really valuable or pertinent, actually, when you said, what was it about you or me? What is it about us, then, that attracts that kind of... You know, you said... it's about... I remember... we might have to cut this bit out as well because I can't remember. I'm just being thrown by that.
We were talking about taking responsibility and not simply saying, oh, the damn blasted man. But it's also about saying what made us choose.
Absolutely.
And in saying that, I have no regrets. I've got these children and I have no words to fully describe what they mean to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And absolutely, I hear that. And I wouldn't change them for the world. Love them to the max. And I do feel that my choices, you know, like you said, I am responsible for my own choices. I probably wouldn't have seen it as that back then.
No.
And it also, like you said earlier, it is a reflection of where I was in my own personal development and growth.
Absolutely.
And what I expected and valued for myself, and how I felt either deserving or not deserving. You know, I remember I always go back to that ideal that I had when I was a kid. You know, when I'm 18, I'm going to get married and I'm going to have all these kids, you know. The reality was I was definitely not in a emotionally healthy space. You remember, I was saying, I can't remember whether it was this episode, but where my dad felt very much unavailable, and I was kind of reaching out, looking for my dad.
Validation.
Absolutely, for my dad to validate me.
I guess I can concur with that as well.
To say, Marcia, you're all right. Yes, Marcia, you're good. You're well done. You know, because I felt like, you know, I never got, you know, I'd do this and do that, and I never, you know, there was no acknowledgement of anything that I'd done. And that impacted me. You know, and I've spent most of my adult life either doing this course or that course, or finding myself in wrong relationships that kind of, you know, I knew in my gut that this wasn't
right for you.
It, yeah. And it's like, this ain't it, but I went for it anyway. And I think the question is, why?
Yes. But we know why, because when we talk about these foundation stones, you do what you know. And I think with children, go to school, do well, We're not given financial intelligence training. We're not given relationships intelligence training. And even if those who are, you're still going to make... But I think that we've come from, in my case, a war zone in terms of lots of explosions, and emotionally not dissimilar for you, because when there's that total absence of having that understanding, then what else are you going to do when you go out into the world? How are you going to know to navigate?
Absolutely.
I think there's more language and understanding now. I'm not saying it means that it's easy for younger people, but I think that there's more language.
Absolutely. We didn't have that.
We were just going, you know. For me, I know that if a man accepted me, that for me that was not looking at if his acceptance was warped, if his acceptance was, but the fact that he'd accepted me was a reason to be in that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I know now it's madness. And I wish I could say that stopped in my 40s because it still continued.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess there are no ultimate answers, but looking at what we've come from, it's not surprising.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's important I hope that there are more conversations now. Uncles, brothers, aunties, sisters, we need to educate and help our
absolutely
young people to navigate and understand. Also, I think it's important to share I told my children when I was with your dad, this is where I was. They have told me that helped them tremendously.
Right.
And some of just the ridiculous things. I remember I was in one relationship. And I'm like, why? And it was because of the acceptance thing.
Yeah.
If somebody likes me, it means I'm supposed to be in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
and put my children sometimes through things that they had no business having to witness or hear, and me being upset.
And I relate to that so much. Again, it's somebody showing you that affection or whatever, and it's like, this, you think it's right,
I'm gonna be in
even when something in your gut is telling you. Because I always knew, there was a part of me that knew this is not where you're meant to be, but I overrode it, gave benefit of the doubt, even when other people were saying, oh, Marcia, this person,
But if you're getting some kind of stroke as in some kind of feeling, like a drug or like
absolutely,
you enjoy it for the time.
Absolutely. And so you kind of go ahead and you override everything and you go into that. And it was something that you said, actually, about the relationships, sometimes being like a bomb that's just exploded, and the shrapnel's going all over the place, and and I'm thinking about when I was growing up, my mum and dad, yes, they were married and all of that. Our experiences might be different, but I think essentially some of that stuff is the same.
Yes.
The
absence of for real.
Yeah. For real. And in a way it wasn't even an explosion, it was more of an implosion for me. But and so it's coming from the inside out. And
no support with it. And we're not bad-mouthing our parents because they didn't understand either.
No, they didn't. This isn't, absolutely, we love our parents. Oh my God. And I think there's that thing that they only do what they knew to do.
Exactly.
I don't know what my dad's experiences were. I don't actually know what his experience, what was it for him when he was growing up? What shaped him to be the man that he became?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that impacted on how he parented us.
Yes, absolutely.
And how he showed up for us.
Yeah.
And the same with my mum. I know more about my mum's past than I hardly know anything about my dad's, because he wasn't a talker.
Yeah.
He wasn't somebody that you could talk. My mum was. So growing up, we knew lots of stuff about my mum, and it was really fascinating listening to her growing up stories. And my dad had very little to say, and the only time we got a sense of who he was and where he came from was on his deathbed. That was the only time that my dad would speak and tell us,
So in a way, you can't build a house if you only have select pieces of it. I guess symbolically that's what we're saying.
Wow.
I've got no windows and I've got no... The skeleton of the house is missing. That is missing. But now we've got to build a house.
Wow.
You can't. The house the draft is going to get in, or you have to have all of the tools, and we didn't. And I mean,
I love the analogy, by the way. It's perfect.
It just came to my head. But at the same time, it's not all doom.
No.
Because we have these beautiful human beings that we brought into the world.
Absolutely.
That are doing beautiful things in the world.
Yes.
Me see your son just drop a tune the other day, something.
Yeah.
One of your children.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we don't want to entirely say that everything's been absolutely terrible.
No.
But there is a reality of not having the tools, but you have to go forward in your life and then create life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important because we have to come through the treacle. We have been through the treacle.
The molasses, wherever you are, Carly.
And we want to just keep it all real. That our lives haven't been perfect, our relationships haven't been perfect. I would say that you're doing fantastic things,
and I would say exactly the same.
And I think sometimes we can look at other people and think, wow, this and that, but you don't know necessarily the journey. You don't know necessarily what's actually shaped us, and that's why this is important.
And we're thankful.
Absolutely, and we are very, very thankful. And what we're saying also is that we are still vulnerable like anybody else. We have walked the path that so many of us have walked, but we've come through the other side. And what we're saying is we're sharing this to be supportive, to know you're not on your own, to know also that, it could be, you could be our age, if you're our age, we can process things now, we can look back and reflect and think, wow, but also to say, don't blame yourselves.
And we still have hope.
Absolutely.
We haven't finished. We're not done yet. We're grey here and everything. But we still have room for love.
Absolutely.
From a partner in our lives. The door isn't closed.
It's never what my mum always says, never too late.
No.
For a shower of rain, although we're not looking for a shower of rain.
We done with the rain, Marcia. We done with it. Yeah.
But yes, we are still capable of, like we say, there is no. The only time that you feel, you're too old is when you say that to yourself. We're not, and you're not. There is hope.
There is hope, and we hope that this has been helpful for you. We could talk for longer. Yeah. There's this brilliant guy on Instagram. I think is it Raising Black Boys or Raising Boys to Men. I listen to him all the time. He's fantastic. He's sharing experiences from the perspective of being a dad, and sharing I can't remember his name, but he is wonderful, and I want to thank him for what he does. I think it's Raising Boys to Men.
Right, I'll have to check that
Number
one out.
2. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
Beard, brilliant.
Right. Yeah.
And little gems. They're absolute gems. So. You don't, speak to people, have these conversations. If you're in relationships, you will know from your soul, like you said, if this is healthy. Absolutely. And if there are doubts that you have, I hope that you have people that you can talk to and that you can share that with. If you have any fears or second guessing yourself or situations that are abusive, that you get the support that you need.
Actually, also with that as well, feel free if there is something that you want to sort of talk through. Please do reach out to us. And we can signpost or help in any way.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that was this. I hope you found that interesting. Latest edition of. Look Bout Yourself, and we'll see you next time talking about another aspect of relationships.
Indeed.
Signing out for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bless.
Look about yourself with Marcia and Musufing.